on with my thoughts onto this wonderful motorbike, the XSR700, about 9 months into the first year of ownership. As you probably are aware, this bike is based on the Yamaha XSR700, one of the best selling modern bikes in the world at the moment. It uses the same engine and drivetrain and chassis as that bike, known as the FZ07 in the United States, and also as the new, basically replacement for the Phaser. I can't remember what they call it, but it's like the touring version of the MT07. The practical version. This is the impractical version, really, with a kind of retro styling, the round headlight, the naked bodywork. And as you might be aware, this is my first big boy bike. Up until about 11 months ago, I was still on my sort of learner license. We call it the CBT in the UK, which limited me to a 125cc motorbike, on which I had great fun and learnt a lot. But it eventually, like, we all have to grow up one day, so I decided to take my license, and I just adored the look of this bike, and I adored the sort of modern power, the torque that I'd read about in the reviews, mixed with the looks, so I decided to go all in and buy it. It's also quite a good price for a decent new bike. I managed to get mine for just over £6,000. I believe they have gone up since then. And interestingly, the first time I rode it properly was actually on this very road up into the Ashdown Forest, for some reason has a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, I think for wildlife, but it's bloody annoying when the roads are so good. And there's a police station right in the middle of it, so you do have to be careful out there, fellow bikers. And I remember I was coming up that road, that hill I've just filmed coming up. There's 3 cars in front of me, and I thought, oh, I'll just try and overtake one. Twisted the throttle, and I was blown away. Almost fell off the back of the thing. Felt like the Millennium Falcon going into hyperspace. The speed was unreal for someone who never really stretched the legs of a bike like this before. So what's happened in the year since that point? Well, I've got used to the power a bit. I originally kind of thought it was all the bike I would ever need, and I'll give you my conclusion on that later. Since then I've driven it on all sorts of roads, motorways, country roads, Wales, the M25. I've had the throttle twisted right against the stopper in top gear. I've had it above the listed top speed of the vehicle on my own private track, of course. And I've come to the conclusion that yes, like any machine, it has a few areas for improvement, but generally speaking, it is one of the best bikes out there for practical use. It's not the fastest machine on the road. It is very quick for a 700 series though, for a 600, 700 capacity bike. There's a lot of torque. And you can accelerate from sort of 10, 20 miles an hour up to 60 in the blink of an eye, which is what you'll be doing the most of in everyday situations. First things first though, on to the negatives. I'll mention them first because it's not something you'll read much about or see much about on the internet, but they are there. The main annoyance is the fuel gauge is bloody terrible. It'll show completely full for about the first third of a tank, as if you've used no fuel at all. And then in the middle third of the tank, it'll just disappear from full to empty in a few miles. But even when showing empty, it'll still have over a third of a tank left. So as a point of reference, it's not very useful. Second negative I can think about is got to be, as with many bikes, the the corrosion of the fixings and fastenings on the bike. I didn't ride mine a whole lot during the winter compared to a regular winter commuter. I probably rode it less than about 10 times in total in proper winter conditions. And I used loads of ACF 50 anti-rust stuff, and I tried to wash it as regularly as practical. And even then, a lot of the bolt heads, the brake pipe fastenings and other items grew white coats of fur very quickly, especially on the lower side of the bike. It's pretty poor showing, really. You shouldn't need your own private valet just to stop your motorbike that you've paid thousands of pounds for disintegrating before your very eyes. So just a couple more quirks is when you get into that bottom third of your tank, your fuel gauge disappears and your clock disappears, just giving you a mileage counter of how many miles you've done. That's quite annoying, because I want to be able to see the time. I don't see why they couldn't have had both on the display at the same time. Learner driver's quite quick. There was a safety recall, which was a bit annoying. Basically, you see down there the cables that are wrapped in what looks like a sort of tape and a sheath. Yamaha did a safety recoil because apparently some of the brake cables and throttle cables and stuff can rub against each other and wear through each other, causing short circuits and explosions and things. So it wasn't a big deal, but it still means you have to take half a day off whatever you're doing, probably working, to have your bike fixed, and you don't get any compensation for it. So whilst it's not an uncommon thing, it's still a bit annoying. What else? I had one of the bolts work its way loose out of the headlight, fall off and disappear. Again, a minor thing, but you shouldn't have that on a new machine. And I think the only other thing I could point to is potentially you could criticise the exhaust note. It has got a bit of character sometimes. It can chirp and burble away. Where the hell is this sat-nav taking me? But generally, as you can hear, it's not the most throaty, roary of sounds. I've toyed with the idea quite a lot of putting a Akrapovic or something on, even if I could afford it. But I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to keep with the stock exhaust for two reasons. It means I don't have to wear earplugs all the time when I'm riding it. And it means you can go pretty fast and you don't draw much attention to yourself. I think at least once I've got away with proceeding at a fairly brisk pace, because people look at the bike, see it's a naked retro looking thing, don't hear it making much noise from the exhaust, and kind of assume it's going slower than it probably is, possibly is. And by all means, these negatives I'm mentioning, do not take that as me saying this bike's rubbish, don't buy it. I did a video on the Herald 125 Classic I had about the things that can go wrong with it and how to fix them. And a lot of people seem to have interpreted that as me saying it's an awful bike, look at all this crap that can happen. That wasn't really my intention. I actually loved that bike. It was a pain in the arse for several reasons, but I don't regret buying it one bit. It was a lovely bike, especially as a first bike to have. And if I had a massive garage and unlimited money, I probably would have kept it. I'm merely trying to inform people of what can go wrong, so they can prepare themselves and bear them in mind if they're gonna buy one of these machines. I have no idea where I am, but it looks very pretty. This is East Sussex, if you're wondering, everyone. Very nice part of the country, if you can afford it. So enough of the negatives, onto the positives. What's good about it? Well, the engine is awesome, especially as a first bike. Be wary of it to begin with until you've got completely used to it, if you've never driven a A1 category machine before, because it's got a lot of torque. But yeah, I love it. And for me, it's fast enough. There have been occasional moments on the motorway when I'm overtaking, when I think, oh, I wish this had the power of a sports bike. I'd love to blast off at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But the reality is, if I did that, I wouldn't have a driving license anymore, and I might be in prison. And this bike has a kind of self-limiting top speed. You get above 100 miles an hour and the wind normally is pretty fearsome, so you couldn't really sustain that kind of speed for long periods. And you do need earplugs when you're going above about 80 or 90. And I've seen the top speed listed as 119 miles an hour. Well, on my private airfield test track, I've had it up to 121 indicated, and it felt like it still had a little bit to go, so it is quite quick for a regular bike, but hopefully not quite insane-o fast enough for you to lose your license every time you want to stretch its legs. So for me, it does the job. Maybe one day I'll get a track bike for real speed thrills, but as an all-rounder, the engine, I believe, is pretty much perfect. The looks, well, I've heard them described as being as an acquired taste. I love them. I think it does look better from the rear quarter than it does from the front. But all round, it really suits what I'm looking for. Practicality wise, it's not the most practical of machines. There's just enough room below the seat for a small carrier bag for emergencies. There's no windscreen, obviously. I've managed to strap a tyre repair kit to the side for emergencies, and you can just about perch a tail bag on the back. But really, this bike's at its best sort of naked as it was intended, and if you do need to carry anything, you're best off just wearing a big backpack. But it's perfectly fine for enjoying yourself and commuting and all that sort of thing. Running costs pretty good, as I said earlier. I've been getting 50 miles per gallon out of it, and I do ride it pretty quick everywhere. You could probably get even more if you drove around like an 80-year-old. Police, whoops. I wonder what he's doing out here. Mods wise, as you've seen in some of my other videos, I've put a few crash bungs on it. put a radiator guard on it. I do want to get the side panels on the radiator powder coated one day, but I haven't bothered yet. Apart from that, I'm not really into sort of customizing bikes for the sake of customizing it. With this, I just want to take the cover off it, fire up the ignition and go. I don't want to faff around with anything unreliable because of my own cack-handed work. So to sum up then, I believe this is an outstanding machine, excellent bike, thoroughly recommended, and whether you go for this or the MT-07 or the Tracer thing, it's up to your own personal preferences. But I hope you found this video informative. I'll try and be making them a bit more often in future. So have a good day and see you next time.